It was an image that became a symbol of the jubilation that swept the nation at the end of World War II. The image of the kissing sailor taken by Alfred Eisenstaedt in Times Square has become world famous, but the identity of the subjects remained a mystery for decades. That changed when a Rhode Island teacher, Lawrence Verria, made it his mission to find the identities of those in the picture. After years of research, Mr. Verria discovered the identities of the sailor and nurse as being that of George Mendonsa and Greta Friedman. Mr. Verria and Mr. Mendonsa both recently paid a visit to the Attleboro Council on Aging to tell their story.
What was that, an impulse to kiss her?
Yeah, it was the end of the war, the booze I drank, and what the nurses did out there.
I think like a lot of people, the photograph is such an amazing photograph. It just interested me from the very first time that I saw it. I was always curious about the story behind the photo. When I had the opportunity to meet George and hear his claim, it brought about my curiosity even more so, especially when I was hearing so many other people who claimed to be in that photo. Once I started researching it, more and more I looked at it, the more I wanted to solve it, because all the claims are so credible, at least at face value. Once George agreed to work with me a little closer, as well as some of the other sailors as well. They interviewed several of them and talked to them and went back and forth. It became clearer and clearer to me that it was, in fact, George Mendonsa. And then it was really, you know, here's a person that has deserved credit for so long for being in that photo, wants his due, has a story to tell us, and what a loss for us as a nation not to know the true story behind that photo. And so it became kind of a personal mission for me to make sure that the proper story was being told, and that the people who were in the photo who had been denied their due for so long would finally enjoy that attention. From 1980 through 2010, a Rhode Island fisherman claimed to be the kissing sailor. Most people didn't know that, and for the most part, his case was behind all those others who were in the forefront. The problem is that George Mendonsa is in fact the kissing sailor. And what I'd like to share with you, we go in great detail in the book, I'm not going to go into that much detail here, but I want to hit some of the high points that jump out very easily from examining the photos and how we've come to the determination that it is in fact George Mendonsa who is the kissing sailor. The book came out in May of 2012, and immediately it got an awful lot of nationwide attention, which is what we wanted, because we wanted everyone to know that the sailor is very much alive, in very good health, and willing to share with us what happened on that day. And that's really the reason for that. The bonus to all of this is that we also have the so-called nurse with us as well. And we wanted to make sure that she also was part of this story, because it's obviously a critical part of the story. And when we lost Edith Shane, which was a great loss to us all because she was a wonderful person and did so many great things for veterans, we thought, or many people had thought, that we had lost the nurse. But in fact, the dental assistant who's in the photo was still with us. We wanted to make sure that she too could tell her story and share it with us during her lifetime. So the close proximity, as it turned out, was nice, because I was able to interview George many times over. And he was the one I needed to talk with most, because once we determined it was George Mendonsa, then that's the story. So what is the story? And that requires a lot of interviewing in terms of his background, what was he like growing up, how did he end up in the Navy versus any other service area of the military. And then what was his experience in World War II like? And then most importantly, in terms of the photo, how does he end up in Times Square at that moment, and why does he kiss that woman? The story, as it turns out, is worthy of the photo.
He says, well, there's a picture here in Life magazine. He says, I'm looking at that sailor. He says, I know it's you. I says, you're kidding me. I didn't remember the picture ever being taken. So I said to my friend, I said, well, bring the Life magazine over to the house. I want to take a look at it. Well, the minute I looked at it, the first thing I saw and I studied was the hands. Damn, that is me. Well, I didn't know Larry, so he was more or less a total stranger. But he come knocking on my door one day, and he introduced himself, and we started talking, and he showed quite a bit of interest in the famous photo. So that's how I got to meet Larry, and of course, He wrote the book, and I think he did a hell of a job with that book. Since the book, I'd say that this photo began to generate a hell of a lot more interest in the public after he wrote the book. Although the book did get a lot of publicity throughout the years. But that book did a lot for generating a lot of publicity. Well, the only thing I'm a little disappointed is that Life hasn't admitted. But I've never found a person yet that I can't prove I'm the guy, you know, with the evidence I have.